3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being on board with us. Lots to get to. Coordinators have spoken after LSU ahead of Akron. Akron coach Joe Moorhead with some honesty in his presser this week.
I mean, yeah. I would say so.
A little bit.
Or I will pull it up because I did listen to the press conference, all 5 minutes of Akron's weekly coach press conference. And, yeah, it was a very interesting quote from him. Usually coaches of schools like that who are, participating in buy games, if you will, B-U-Y,
That's B-U-Y.
not B-Y-E.
Right.
Two different meanings, the same word.
That's right.
But who participate in these buy games don't oftentimes like to publicly acknowledge the spoils of losing.
No, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, usually, with the victor comes the spoils,
Right.
but not in college football, my friend. Not in G5 football, baby. You're getting your ass kicked to get that cash checked.
Well,
unless you're Northern Illinois.
Yeah. And then Notre Dame took it out on Purdue.
Poor Purdue.
Oof.
Poor Purdue. That was so bad.
Oof.
At home, too. At home, brother.
66-7?
You have to do my fighting Drew Breeses like that? Come on.
So we'll touch on that. Jordan Kay of the State Newspaper will be with us coming up bottom of the hour, get his take on what's going on around the program. They've thrown out the latest hype video, which was pretty cool for the uniform this weekend. It's a George Rogers-esque throwback to the early 80s, which I thought was pretty cool. That was when yours truly was coming of age around here.
So it's a little more nostalgic.
Yeah, look, and I don't want to start a thing, but I suppose I just giving my opinion, it may, again, it won't start a thing, but
it'll finish a thing.
it won't do that either. I wish. I like what they're going to wear this weekend. And whether it's been a slight alteration of that, like when Coach Holtz came, because, right after George and them and Coach Morrison came, so when they went to the Garnet helmets, and now, Carolina's got like 4 helmets. I know I'm going to sound like old dude, and I don't mind the uniform combos, and I know the kids like them, and Carolina does it, and Oregon does it, and Maryland does it, and a few other teams here and there. Even Tennessee now has an alternate helmet. I guess even Georgia wore one once, which really kind of surprised me.
Which is also lame. Brands are too iconic.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain. I mean, I would tell you, I'm more in the realm of Penn State, Alabama type stuff, like just And if Carolina went back to what Georgia and those guys wore all the time, I'd be perfectly fine with that. The white hat, the garnet shirt at home, the white pants, and you just switch out the white shirt on the road, unless you're going to LSU, because they like to wear white at home. Other than that, I'm good with it. And I do like this one this weekend. I do like that helmet. The stars on the helmet, I think they put in the video. Now, back then you got the star for like certain accomplishments. It wasn't just part of like a design, Or
the back when helmet stickers meant something more than just being shouted out by Mark May and Lou Holtz on the post-game shows on ESPN.
Yeah. So you got your star for doing stuff, which was also kind of fun. But it's a good look this weekend. I like it. Again, it's not completely like matched to that, but it's pretty darn close.
Oh, dude, I think it looks fantastic.
It looks great.
I think it looks good. One of my favorite things about this whole program is the different looks they can give.
And that's what I'm saying.
Any given basis.
A lot of people like it, and I'm not here to dog it. I'm not. I'm not saying I can't believe it.
I see what you're saying though.
But there, if you said, hey, if you could pick something, what would you pick? And again, it may be because not only was I a little kid. And that's what I grew up with, even before George. They were wearing that all through the 70s and into the early 80s. But, you watch Carolina, go to a couple of bowl games back when bowl games were harder to get into. And you watched a guy win the Heisman. Mm-hmm. I mean, like.
It changes how you look at those uniforms.
Yeah. That's the best I can say is like you watched a guy win the Heisman. And it was just like, man. And remember, I mean, he had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. This wasn't like a one-hit wonder.
Dude could play.
I mean, yeah, 1,000-yard season as a sophomore, All-American as a junior, Heisman winner as a senior.
Go Saints.
You know, yeah, and then the first pick in the draft and the rookie of the year.
The real deal.
He was, man, he was awesome.
Getting to honor those, like that's why I love, stuff like that, being able to pull it back. But South Carolina's had a lot of good looks. I don't think every school can pull off the multi-look.
Yeah.
Sometimes like schools try. Like Maryland, I think Jay Phillips, but the Maryland has been an epic disaster. I think their uniforms have looked like vomit ever since Ralph Friedgen left.
Even when they wear like my favorite of what Maryland wears, and for those that don't know, I'm a Maryland parent. My oldest is a graduate of the University of Maryland. I think back to the Boomer Esiason days when they won the ACC under Bobby Ross, just with the Terps on the side. But
those are nice now.
The Maryland flag helmet, that one's just because the Maryland flag it's cool, and folks in Maryland are like we are down here. That flag is on everything. I mean,
yeah,
it's on everything, dude.
It is a top 5 state flag.
Yeah, it's just like South Carolina's. I mean, we down here, we love our flag. And, our flag's on everything. And we have so many alterations for, like, logos for schools.
As it should, because also
businesses.
Top 5 state flag
in
South
it's a great
Carolina.
Flag. I love our flag. Anyway, but I do. If you haven't seen, they're going throwback this weekend. And I hope they keep this, in the closet and bring it out.
Definitely
from time to time. I don't want to say I almost hate that it's wasted on a non-con game because it's not wasted.
Oh no,
But I mean, I'd love to see that against Ole Miss or
pulling that out against Ole Miss would be pretty cool.
Who else? Missouri's still coming and A&M still coming.
Yeah.
So that'd be fun.
Would be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or I'd like to see them wear it on the road. Like white on white.
I mean, give me the George Rogers Road throwback.
Play it at Clemson.
The white,
Ooh.
I'm here for that. The all whites, man, that's a good look. That's cool. But again, I like that garnet. I still remember when they pulled out the black jersey against Clemson in '83, and that didn't go well. And I was like, please never wear black again.
I'm not superstitious at all, but I am very pro if you got your tail kicked with a certain jersey and it's the first time you debuted it, it's never meant to be. Well, it's not. Like, you should never wear that again.
And it was not a good day. I remember that because I remember a lot of you, again, that were at that game, the rumor all week was they were going to wear black against Clemson. And back then, my buddies and I was like 12, 13, I was 13. We like to get in early and watch warm-ups and stuff, And when they came out for warm-ups and stretching and, as the old folks would say, calisthenics and such, they were in garnet. And I remember my grandma and some other people, like her set of friends, came in later. And, my grandma was kind of ragging on me and my buddies like, yeah, I told you they weren't wearing black. And I was like, no, all week we heard they were going to. And then when they came out in black, I was like, oh, yeah.
Back then you could pull that off a whole lot better than you could now.
Because you can't keep a secret now.
Absolutely not.
You can't keep a secret.
And, it benefits you as a school to kind of, hype up the game a little more, especially in a game like against Akron, where it's, you need to add a little more juice to it because the Zips aren't necessarily a football powerhouse, as we will definitely get into throughout today's show and the rest of the week. But it does kind of, I guess, behoove you to get people excited about the game a little more by releasing it a little sooner. But I am a fan of the old switcheroo tactic to trick people into thinking you're not going to do the really cool thing you said you were going to do earlier in the week.
But, I'll also say, man, like the 84 all garnet, because they won a bunch of games here, and that's when the Fire Ant defense was kind of born with that look of the all garnet. That was pretty strong, man. They garnet everything. That was pretty cool. I gotta say that I did enjoy that one. But if you said pick one, what they're throwing back to this weekend
would be
that'd be choice one for me. And I know it's because of when I was raised up into this kind of stuff. Like I get it. That's why more than anything else. But it is a cool look. We'll have maybe next week with an off week. Maybe we get into a little bit more discussion of some of that.
I would definitely like rock one of those jerseys.
Yeah.
Like own it, wear it publicly.
Yeah, I don't have
Those
one
are
of those.
stylish.
The only two.
Not even a big jersey wearing guy.
Yeah, I don't.
But
yeah,
I would do that.
Football jerseys, I don't really like to wear around. Again, none of us have shoulder pads on. But the only two jerseys I have are a black Sterling Sharp.
Ooh, clean, yes.
And then I have just a white number 12 that I got, just kind of generically. I don't even remember who was wearing 12 when I got it. Both are from the 80s.
You were when you wore it. That's who.
Yeah. No, I got that probably when I was about 15, 16. But and it might have even been that they were out of everything else. And I was like, well, I'll just get 12. But there was not a star player in the mid 80s that was wearing 12. I do remember that.
But there was someone that wore it, and
Somebody
that might
did.
see you and be
Yeah.
like, you're wearing my jersey, even though you might not have any idea.
But, the Sterling Sharp one, man. And, I got that down at Todd Moore.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I let one of my kids wear it to a game once. I don't remember if Carolina won. I think they won. I think it was a Georgia game, like maybe in 12.
That's one you got to break out for special
Yeah.
occasions.
And I was like, all right, here, you
like
can,
a Georgia game.
like you can wear it today, but if you get any nacho cheese on it, I'm never letting
Oh, you don't even let them eat nacho cheese at the game. You don't. Like, it's one of those, like, you can wear it, but everything that you will consume will not.
Yeah, I want you to go order
sauce.
Yeah, I want you to go order a hot dog without the hot dog.
Just the bun.
You get a bun.
Fill it up with some popcorn,
Right.
and then that's the extent of
You
it.
get a Dasani.
We'll keep the drink in my cup holder, but with an extra long straw.
Yeah, not even a Sprite.
Not even. No.
I don't want the sugar drying up and getting crusty on there or something like that. Yeah,
Some things are sacred.
that's a fun one. But y'all check out the video; it's very good. Justin and the crew continue to earn the accolades for stuff like that.
It's very well done.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on around the coordinators. And again, Jordan will join us in about 15, 20 minutes to get his take on what's going on as the Gamecocks prep for Akron. Still some fallout from the LSU game as well. 803-404-6100. If you want to weigh in on uniforms, it's fine.
Yeah.
803-404-6100. It's the Wednesday postgame show. Love telling you about our good friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They've been doing it across the Midlands since 1936. From their humble beginnings nearly 90 years ago, Palmetto Citizens has been growing to meet the financial needs of tens of thousands of members here across the Midlands. They've weathered the challenges of harsh economic conditions and the ever-changing complexities of the financial industry. Through it all, they continually adapt to ensure that they remain a trusted financial partner and a safe and sound organization, which they indeed are. Whether it's anything with banking, really, checking, savings, car loans, mortgages, home equity lines of credit, student loans, anything you might need. See what they can do for you. They've got some great people that work there. My wife and I are members. We love them. We use the Millwood branch, but anyone that's convenient near you is going to be filled with great folks ready to take care of any and all of your financial needs, and you'll do it for less with a federal credit union like Palmetto Citizens. Check them out online, palmettocitizens.org. 18 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back into the postgame show. I want to remind you that September is Hunger Action Month. The game and Hardee's teaming up for the Hardee's Roundup. You go to your participating Hardee's, round up your bill to the nearest dollar amount, and all of those donations will go straight into the Harvest Hope Food Bank for Students campaign. Excellent cause all month long at all participating Hardee's. The Hardee's Roundup to benefit Harvest Hope Food Bank for Students. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Jordan K., the State Paper, coming up in just a little bit. Gamecock coordinators speaking today, and we'll get into some details from them. Jordan covering that press conference as well. You know, you look at it, Elijah, the line has gone up. Carolina minus 28 in this one. The ball game is sold out, by the way. That's good. I don't know if it'll be a full house, but at least in terms of all the tickets being sold, that's another positive sign for the growth of the program and what's going on. And people love night games. By the way, on that note real quick, before we do talk about the football, and I don't know exactly what it is, but for those of you who do like the night games and you like the interaction, make sure you download the app. They'll tell you which one to get. It's on the website somewhere. I forget what it's called.
There's a lot of apps.
Yeah, there are.
I have way too many on my phone because I think I only use like 10% of them.
But whichever one they use for the fan interaction, there's going to be a new light show this weekend.
A new
one.
Light show.
Yep.
Ooh.
Which sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
So don't know when exactly. I don't know if it's like at the end of a quarter or halftime or just whenever they feel like it. Or if they do it 2 or 3 times, I have no idea.
Just do it in the middle of a play.
It's not a conference game. What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Yeah. Who is going to be issuing the fine?
Right. Here, Akron, here's another $50,000. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, take it home with you. Don't spend it all in one place.
Listen, I know that virtually everyone, apparently even Joe Moorhead, is going into this game going, well, South Carolina is going to kick the crap out of the Zips, so then what? And do you want to play that real quick?
Yeah, I think this is it right here. I think this is actually on our list. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and play it because Joe Moorhead was asked about playing this game. And, shout out for the honesty here.
It's kind of the same thing. You're going on the road to play another top 25 caliber team that is incredibly talented and well coached. Almost knocked off LSU. We're going to control what we can control, which is how well we prepare, our level of effort and execution. The department gets to pay some bills. The equestrian team gets new saddles, and everybody wins. So we're going to be fired up to go down there in a certainly a very challenging environment.
I don't have it in. I believe they're getting 1.5.
Oh, that's a good one for a bye game, for a group of 5 bye game.
If I'm wrong, somebody will correct me within minutes, I'm sure. But I believe I saw 1.5.
That's solid. Give another $500,000 for the light show in the middle of a play. You got $2 million. That's a fair deal.
I'll double check that, but because I don't have it. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, but I do believe that came across the other day. But I'll don't quote me on it yet, but I think that's where it is. And it's in that ballpark anyway. Regardless, this is a weekend for you to show the kind of domination you can show while at the same time cleaning up the mistakes and hoping that you put those kind of things in the past. Whatever. Look, I know in this RPO realm we're in and spread offenses, again, a lot of the penalties that you've seen with men downfield, it's such a fine line, and it's something that officials are looking for. I threw it out the other day, and I need to talk with a football expert, but is this something that coaches will get together on and go, hey, maybe we need not call this as often, or hey, sometimes you refs, you're looking at it the wrong way. You're looking at it from a more antiquated style of football. Antiquated may be too strong a word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Relative to a more modern version of the game in terms of what we're asking our players to do and be prepared for, or when they are, dare I say, caught off guard. Like, for instance, the fake kick for a touchdown against ODU, you got to know you can't go downfield.
Yeah, that's a classic.
But
the play.
The one on to Dale Von Campbell, I forget who got called for that. Did Bennett get called for that?
For the OPI?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the
OPI.
No,
you're thinking of the 2-point conversion.
Yeah. Sorry, yes.
They had an illegal man downfield.
And I'm like, on that one, all right, what do you want somebody to do when a play breaks down? And how exactly are you still looking, so And there's fine lines. Again, I'm not going to go back and start rehashing officiating and things like that. But this needs to be, nothing is mistake free.
Yeah.
But you got to cut down on the ones that you can directly control. You just find a way to flush that out of your system.
Yeah, I think the RPO thing is very interesting too, and that's one reason why I kind of like how hard it is to have to run it, because so much of football now is catered towards the offense and offensive, marching down the field. Like, it's so much easier now to score in college football or in football in general than ever before, just because of the type of things that we as a society have tried to take away from football, knowing what we do based off of information we've had over the last 100 years or so. But when it comes to like the RPO thing, like the RPO is probably the hardest play in football to defend against. So making it harder on the offense to have to execute and pull it off, I'm still all in favor for. Like the LSU touchdown that they scored to Kyron Lacey was like the perfect example of it. Nussmeier pulled the ball out the last second from the running back. As soon as Nick Emenwari takes 2 steps towards him, and he just barely gets that pass over Nick to get to Kyron Lacey. And at that point, there's nothing that South Carolina could have done in that situation. Right. The RPO is just a very difficult play to defend against. So I'm kind of like pro throwing flags on illegal man downfield on those, just because it's already such a hard play to guard.
That's fair.
That it's a fair crutch for defenses. Yeah. But I think it's also a very fixable thing for South Carolina, too, because a lot of it's just timing. Yeah. A lot of it's timing, maybe communication on the field.
And there again, I'm saying, whatever it might be, I'm going to be blunt here, fix it.
Someone
you can't
yell,
have these things haunting you. This stretch of 3 games here that comes up afterward, and yes, you get a week off. But there's a lot of people who have said, well, you're not going to win any of those. And I don't know if that certainly isn't an attitude the team would take, but don't let that creep in. Go show, anyway.
Because you're certainly going to be in every game.
But if you can be in every game, don't let those fine line marginal type things that you control keep holding you back.
Well, that can keep you from pulling off one of those upsets. That can be the difference between being in the game and losing in heartbreaking fashion, or being in the game and winning it because you just commit fewer penalties than the other team.
Yeah. Oh, what if you hit that 2-pointer?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that makes you win the game. I know, but if everything else is equal, but everything else wouldn't be equal.
Yes.
At that point.
Would change the drive that LSU would have to make. That completely changes a lot of things in that game.
Right.
That's one of those tough breaks that you had. But if you're able to, especially like when it comes to like Lenoris, for a quarterback with his skill set and as improved as he's getting as a passer, especially with the game slowing down for him a little bit, which is kind of a theme from Dow Loggins today in the press conference, is that the game is slowing down for Lenoris. If the game is slowing down for him at that rate, and you're able to get all the offensive linemen on the same page when it comes to these RPOs to communicate whether or not the ball is about to go in the air or not, and not to get too far downfield, you can pull that off. Your offense is going to get infinitely better without having to just throw the ball downfield or even having the ability to. It's going to make you a whole lot more dangerous as an offense. So that's even just like one small factor of a factor that if you're able to correct, you're going to pull off wins you didn't think you were going to pull off at the beginning of the year, just because your defense raises your floor so high.
Absolutely. As we bring David onto the line here real quick, it is indeed $1.5 million.
Confirmed.
Yeah, got it. So there you go. Hey, David, how are you, bud?
Good, how are y'all?
Good, man.
Jay and Elijah, I love y'all's show. I've been listening to y'all for a long time.
Thank you.
And y'all have a great show.
Appreciate it.
And I went to the game. You're very welcome. I went to the game Saturday, and it was a great game except for the ending. But I was watching some of YouTube on the press conferences, and something just rubbed me wrong with Brian Kelly. Someone said he respected the game or something, but I didn't hear that. I don't know his press conference. All he says, man, that was a tough game. He said that team has a veteran, especially on defense. But we persevered, and we did that, and we did this, and we're tough, and this and that, on and on. I kept saying, aren't you going to say something good about Carolina, something? We just almost beat you. And he didn't in the 5 minutes I listened to it, so I just quit watching it. And I said, well, let me see Sean Beamer, what he says. And then I watched his press conference, and the first thing he said was, first of all, I want to congratulate LSU and Brian Kelly, and it was a heck of a game, and they're going to go far, and just praise them more than they deserved even, but I thought it was very classy. And I just thought it was not classy for Brian Kelly not to even mention Carolina's name. He might have in another interview, but he didn't then, because I listened to it twice. But with the opposite end where Sean Beamer had nothing to respect. And I'll just take it off there and tell me what y'all think.
Thank you, David. Yeah, listen, I think sometime, and I honestly didn't really think much of it. I do remember Shane saying that right at the top, but Shane, that's where Shane typically takes his press conferences after a ball game is to credit the opponent first. That's just kind of how he was raised into it, I suppose, and how he feels. I think Brian at some point did, say, hey, that's, I mean, I'll paraphrase, but that, he said some respectful things. He didn't necessarily start with it. I don't know if in the moment, to be honest with you, he was just thinking, phew, thank God we got out of here, man.
Because he probably didn't think they would when they got down 17-0, and the place was rocking like that.
So, yeah. And Brian's not always as, what's the word I'm looking for? Touchy-feely?
Yeah, emotionally in tune.
He's a little more porcupine-ish.
Yeah, David, I think my biggest thing with Brian Kelly's, my only eye roll moment with Brian Kelly's presser was when he said no one thought we would win.
Yeah.
When you were a 7-point favorite on the road in the SEC against a team that just dropped the hammer on Kentucky like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought you would still win.
I think most people did.
Yeah, I would say, on average, most people that picked that game thought you would win.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not like a 90-10 kind of a most people, but most people.
Yeah. Above 50%.
But at least there was, and the Gamecocks proved there was a fighting chance. It was a good ball game. It was a good ball game. I know it's not fun at the end, like David said. Jordan Kay was there, and he was at the press conferences this week, too. We'll get his take. The state newspaper beat writer joins us when the postgame show returns. Time to talk some more Gamecock football. Our buddy Jordan Kay is with us on the beat for the state newspaper covering the Gamecocks. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Jordan covering the press conferences today as both Carolina coordinators have spoken, Dow Loggins, Clayton White. Jordan, always good to have you, sir. Appreciate you. Let's start with what Dow Loggins had to say in terms of losing Lenoris Sellers last week, adjusting the offense, and what they learned about themselves. What did you gather from that? And while you're at it, give us an update on what Dow has said about what Lenoris can do this week.
Yeah, Dowell said basically, like, we're hoping Lenoris does a little bit more than he did yesterday. And, we just reported that, Lenoris' status is in doubt, and he hasn't really practiced at all this week. So we'll see exactly. I would say right now it doesn't seem super likely that Lenoris plays, but, he's a super tough kid who's going to give it his best shot. But, yeah, Dowell Loggins was basically talking about, like, it doesn't matter, like, who your backup is. It's always going to change, whatever the offense is going from the starter to the backup. And I think you saw that last week. Like, this is a guy in Robbie Ashford who hasn't taken that many first-team reps, and that's sometimes what, we don't give these backup quarterbacks enough credit is they're coming in, and it's not like Robbie Ashford has taken a bunch of first-team reps. So this thing was all new to him, and Dowell has to really quickly figure out, what do we trust him to do? Do we trust him right now in front of 80,000 people against Harold Perkins and LSU's defense to go throw the ball around? It's like, sometimes no. Let's just do what he's comfortable with, and we can't beat ourselves. And, I thought Dowell was just kind of emphasizing that point of, like, hey, we didn't have our starting quarterback in there, and that makes a lot of a difference.
Certainly. And one thing that, in terms of strengths and weaknesses about this offense, a big weakness is holding on to the football. And we've had some serious ball security issues in these first three games. I know Lenoris had a fumble against Old Dominion. There were a couple of fumbles against Kentucky, and then you lost a couple of fumbles in your own red zone against LSU, and those proved to be pretty crucial fumble losses. But listen to Dowell talk about that today. He was asked today, whether or not, or what's being, I guess, addressed to fix the ball security issues specifically inside her own territory. And I thought it was very interesting. But what do you think the effect is going to be with having, if Robbie has to play the whole game, of maybe limiting some of those ball security issues that both quarterbacks have had in their appearances? Yeah,
I mean, Lenoris has already fumbled 4 times, and it's easy to forget because they've recovered 2 of them in the Kentucky game. But I'm not a parent. I would imagine this is what it's like. You're a parent and your kid keeps doing what you tell him not to do. Like, what do you do? What do you say to a guy who fumbles all the time? Of course, he knows that he shouldn't fumble, that he needs to have better ball security. I think the only thing is you just have to make sure that Robbie Ashford practices this week if he does play, or Lenoris or whoever, just to really hone in on the clock in their head. Hey, 1, 2, 3 balls got to come out. And there were a couple times on those fumbles, I mean, there was pressure coming, and both Sellers and Ashford didn't let go of the ball, and that's how you're going to fumble. So I think that's the only thing really you can practice is just making sure the clock in their head is at a pretty set time, and they're able to throw the ball away if they need to, because the longer you hold it, the more chance you have of fumbling.
One of the other things that came up today is the continued concern around third down conversion rate for South Carolina. There's a lot of it that just comes with the territory, obviously, with this kind of offense still kind of growing into itself, Jordan. But was there anything more that Dowell led on to today in terms of what they're looking for in that particular part or phase of the offense?
Nothing super particular. I mean, there's only 12 teams worse in the country at third downs this year. I mean, it's basically 1 every 4 times they're converting, and that doesn't just come down to one thing when you struggle that much. But I think the biggest thing for South Carolina is just don't put yourself in 3rd and long. I mean, the third down issue for both offense and defense so much just comes down to 1st and 2nd down. And a lot of the 13 third downs that South Carolina had on Saturday, like a large majority of them were like 3rd and 10 or longer, or 3rd and 7 and longer. Like, your percentage is always going to suck if you're constantly in and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. So you have to be better on 1st and 2nd down. So that comes back to Dowell Loggins of, okay, what are our play calls on 1st and 2nd down, and how do we make sure we're at least getting some yards so we set ourselves up for success on 3rd down? And, granted, that's not the easiest thing when you've got a backup quarterback in there. And, we're not always sure based on the offense South Carolina runs, like the read that Dowell might have sent in is not the read the quarterback has. Lenoris or Robbie can, pull the ball. They ran a lot. So it's really tough to narrow it down to one or two things. But I think the biggest thing just going forward is, hey, what's their percentage when they're in like 3rd and 5 or less? And how can South Carolina get in 3rd or 5 or less more often?
Certainly. And now on the defense side of the ball, too, I would like to address that as well because, look, out of all the things that you can take away from the LSU game, because there were a lot of layers to that football game on Saturday, I think my main takeaway was if you were able to get solid pass rush, even if just for one half against that LSU offensive line with those 2 tackles, you're going to be able to get pass rush against every single team on your schedule. And to me, that raises the floor of this team significantly higher than what I thought it would be going into this season. What were kind of your thoughts on the defensive performance against LSU and whether or not this can actually elevate the worst case scenario for how this team can look later on this year?
Oh, my gosh. I thought the exact same thing. When you have a pass rush that's disrupting the quarterback like that, it almost guarantees that you're not going to get like 45 points hung on you. It's just going to be really hard to score 35-plus points. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to LSU. I thought Garrett Nussmeier was extremely poised. And if you go back and rewatch the game, he made a handful of throws in high-leverage situations that were with Kyle Kennard basically in his face, or Gilbert Edmond pass rush come in and he barely had to get it out. I mean, that was – you got to give props to what Nussmeier did. But to your point, Elijah, like the floor is so much higher. You start looking at every game and all of a sudden a lot of them become somewhat winnable or at least a coin flip. And I don't think we could have said that about the Alabama game or the Oklahoma game or the Clemson game or the Missouri game 3 weeks ago. I think at that point it's like, man, if South Carolina can just win one of them, you got to be feeling pretty good. And now it'd almost be a disappointment if they only won one of those. They're going to be in a lot of these games, just like they were in the LSU game. And it's going to come down to who makes fewer mistakes, who turns the ball over less, who can make a kick at the end of the game. And, South Carolina wasn't able to do that, but it wasn't because they weren't in the game. They weren't going to get blown out, and I don't think they're going to get blown out of really any game this year.
Jordan Kay with us on the beat for the State Paper. Carolina Akron coming up Saturday night, 7:30. Jordan, when it comes to this defense and the rotation, again, you mentioned Gilbert Edmond just now, and I was going to take you there. They've every week they've been able to, it seems, to add a little bit more up front, and this is a pretty healthy defense right now. I know there was an alteration to the scheme during the game that some fans questioned. I know that Clayton addressed a little bit of that today, but do you see this team wanting to not so much keep rotating players, but do they do any formations? Are they changing things? Are they disguising things in an effort to keep people guessing moving forward? And what might that look like against Akron?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to show a whole lot of it against Akron, but I was kind of impressed with how Clayton White just changed some of his blitzes. I mean, it was really tough to tell on a couple of those, whether Nick Eamon-Worry was blitzing or dropping back. I mean, on the interception, he really showed like a blitz and then drop back. It's why Nussmeier, the pass looks like it was so bad is because he just didn't see Nick Eamon-Worry. So that's on the secondary part. And then, he did some interesting things on one of the sacks. Kyle Kennard was, I think Clayton called it a wide 9, like just basically out. It looked like in no man's land, but all he was trying to do is make sure Kyle Kennard had more room to run and was able to get around Will Campbell, the great LSU offensive line, instead of having to run into him. But, here's the thing that sucks is, Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart are so good that offenses, even though Gilbert Edmond's really good too and Brian Thomas is coming along, it's like offensive coordinators have to just be taking a sigh of relief every time they see Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart leave the field. And that's the tough thing if you're like Clayton White. It's, hey, we want to rotate these guys, but holy crap, we just want our 2 best players on the field as much as possible. And so it's like you talk about rotation, But then we're going to get to the point where it's a big third down and Kyle Kennard or Dylan Stewart aren't on there. We're going to say, Clayton, how come you rotated these guys off? You're putting your two best guys on the sideline. And that's the tough spot. So it's, I think they're probably going to end up trying to toy with that all year. I thought they did a pretty good job on Saturday of rotating because it seemed like in the big spots, Kyle Kennard was on the field. But man, it would be hard for me every time I'm pulling Kyle Kennard or Dylan Stewart off the field.
Good stuff as always, sir. I agree with you, by the way. And
Definitely.
yeah, that's they've become quite a duo. He's Jordan K. Follow along on Twitter, Jordan K. That's with an E_23, and catch his work at thestate.com. Thanks, man. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You bet. More on the Gamecocks coming up. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday. Thanks again to Jordan Kay for joining us. A week from Saturday, it's Sips and Sounds unlimited sampling of over 40 brands of local and national craft beers, wines, seltzers, spirits. Live performances by Ken and Drew from Sister Hazel, Dazer and the Donovan Twins. It's all next Saturday, the 28th. You can go to sipsandsoundscola.com to learn more. Sipsandsoundscola.com.
I like both those things.
Sure. Let's hear, Jordan mentioned this, the ball security issue with quarterbacks and others perhaps, but especially the quarterbacks, is concerning. Dow Loggins spent some time on it today, and here's what he had to say about how these discussions are going with his team.
I appreciate you putting that very delicately because it is an issue. You're not going to beat SEC teams when you turn the ball over 3 times. And look, interceptions are going to happen. Peyton Manning is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, if not the best, and he still has the rookie record for most interceptions thrown. But the fumbles are what drive you nuts, because most of the time the fumbles are a technique thing. And when I look at those things and the quarterbacks had 2 of them, so I hold myself accountable, and that's where I start to get frustrated with myself. Is obviously what I'm doing is not working, and I need to find a different way to challenge them fundamentally on those things. Now, Lenoris's, he made an unbelievable check that most redshirt freshmen don't make in that look. He saw a look that we talked about on Friday morning that they had shown in the past. They hadn't shown one time on tape. And we said, hey, look, they could do this. They have not done this one time this year. And they played with their nickel, a little bit number 7. But they had it, and they did it some when he was at Missouri. And obviously we had the 2 years at Arkansas and last year and he checks that play, and we had a bust in the protection. And at that point, knowing the journey's over and throw the ball away because he's got Mazio for a first down. He checks the play, and I'm in the box saying, what's he doing? I'm asking the signal guys. I'm like, hey, you two, what play did you signal in? And I see him making this, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow, he just checked that. He saw it. It was an incredible check. But when we don't get the other 10 guys to do their job, let's end every series with a kick. And if we do that and we keep playing smart, and the defense came in and held them to 3 that way, but all of a sudden Lenoris is playing his best half of football without a question, without a doubt. What he was seeing in the game starts slowing down. All of a sudden, like, you start as a play caller, you start to feel like you're Superman because, hey, I can call anything. It's a little bit like Spence last year where whatever we call, if it's not the picture-perfect look, he's going to get to number 2. He's going to get to number 3. When you start making those checks and all stuff, now you're like, hey, this guy's starting to see it, and it's starting to slow down a little bit for him. But then when someone doesn't do their job, you have the ball last. You have the ability to erase any mistake from someone else, and don't let someone else's mistake become yours. So, and then Robbie's was a technique thing. We got to have our clock in our heads on some of these third down things. The ball either has to come out, we have to run it, or we check the ball down, but we can't sit back there all day and hold those things because both the fumbles were on third down.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, technique thing, and he's the quarterback's coach. I like how Jordan put it, too, when he was with us, Jordan Kay of the State Paper, if you missed it. He said, I'm not a parent, but, what do you do to tell the kid? That's why my advice to my children is very simple. Don't do anything stupid.
That will last you a long time in life.
It's a big umbrella.
That is applicable everywhere.
But
evergreen.
I think a lot of times too, and maybe I sound naive when I say this, but I just, for guys built like Lenoris and Robbie that are runners too, I think in their mind, no, I can extend this play. I know I can make this play. And a lot of you might be a statuesque, nothing but a downfield thrower and think I can do that. And that's why I heard, Dowell say that made me think of it. We got to have that internal clock. We've got to know this is now gotten to a point where I've got to do something with the ball. Either I start running with the ball, or I chuck the ball into row Z, or whatever it might be. But the one thing I cannot do is continue to hold the ball and be static and keep and then have some level of jeopardy, if you will.
Yeah, and that's why I oftentimes like the phrase that, sacks aren't just an offensive line stat.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a quarterback stat.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you see examples, whether it be college, NFL, of a quarterback getting sacked 50-plus times in a season, not all of that is on the offensive line, too. I mean, you have to be really decisive, and the longer that your offensive line has to block, the more likely they are to break the block and be able to get to you in a vulnerable spot. The less you can take hits in that vulnerable spot, the less likely you are to lose the football. And every time they've lost the football, the exception of Lenoris's run against Old Dominion, has been in the pocket.
Got more from both coordinators we'll get to next hour, plus new information on the future of the Atlantic Coast Conference and some good advice for David Tepper, sort of. We'll get all that for you coming up.
You won't take it. Now, the advice Jay is going to offer to David Tepper might not be something David Tepper accepts, but I can offer some good advice that was given to me, and that is if you have a weight loss goal, friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss can help you a lot. That's advice I took, and I'm glad that I took it because I got the results in about a month's time. I only wanted to lose about 15 to 20 pounds, get closer to my basketball playing weight, and they helped me out a ton without using any shots, without using any pills. My friends Paul Grant and Shaylin over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss did a fantastic job of helping me just establish better living habits, not just better eating habits, better living habits. And they can easily do the same for you. And celebrating 1 year in the Midlands up till September 30th, they are offering a buy one, get one offer. So you can be able to go through this program with a friend, family member, loved one, whoever. Buy one, get one. Awesome deal. Up till September 30th. If it interests you, give them a call. 803-824-4210. Again, that's 803-824-4210 or ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com.
4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. The band is Arcade Fire, but for some reason it sounds like ABBA.
It does a little bit.
I think this is ABBA because I really don't know any Arcade Fire. Arcade Fire is probably a fine band. I
know very little.
Sounds like ABBA.
Have not dove into the discography, but that song specifically does have some ABBA tones to it.
There's an ABBA little vibe going on.
A whole lot of that. Yeah, absolutely. Very upbeat.
Sure.
Very Swedish sounding.
Sure. Where's Arcade Fire from? Do we know this?
Definitely not Sweden, I would say. Or if they were, then that would be really funny.
Can I find that out by going to the interwebs? Arcade.
I mean, I'm finding out by going to the
Fire.
interwebs.
Hang on. Arcade Fire. Oh, they're from Canada.
That's right. Montreal.
All right. Well, that's almost a foreign country.
Oh, they all wear heavy jackets. They're in a place where it's cold. They like hockey, too.
Yeah. I did find out a few weeks ago that Canada is not a state. I was always confused.
What about Canada?
Canada is closer to being.
Okay.
Yeah. Canada is that region, about 10-mile stretch from Montana's northern border over to like Detroit. That is a little thin. The UP of Michigan.
They're all really big Maple Leafs fans.
Yeah. Canada. Little known region.
I have heard they're the largest consumers of craft dinner per capita than any country in the world.
Huh. There's a picture of Arcade Fire here, and one of the dudes is wearing a motorcycle helmet. Everybody else,
proper safety. I can applaud that.
I mean, that's very. I gotta say, dude, they look.
I mean,
they look like they could be from Scandinavia, somewhere, one of the 4 Scandinavian countries.
Look, man, I appreciate it. We just had an entire segment talking about ball security. That's melon security right there. That's protecting the fruit on your head. That's a very, I can applaud that. I always wear helmets, kids.
They're described as an indie rock band. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Why not? All right, I got no real segue out of that one, so we'll get into this for you.
There's not.
Yeah,
there's not.
I got no segue.
We're just going to have to make sure we don't pull any.
Sometimes I can find a segue.
Sometimes you can.
Sometimes I can.
That's a hard pivot, brother.
What I'm going to this time, though, really, again, just not a natural one, so record scratch or hit the brakes. But Clemson, Florida State, of course, most of you know, especially here in our state, and you Clemson fans or non-Clemson fans, that those two schools suing the ACC. ACC is countersued on a couple of things. Well, now they are getting back together, sort of. Now, there's no guarantees on any of this yet, but if you haven't heard, talks between the 3 entities have been ongoing. I don't know if you are really going to be able to call what they want to do a settlement or not, because they're not being ordered to try and settle, within the legal parameters right now. But this is from David Hale, ESPN. According to multiple sources within the league, the conversations are preliminary and the sides are not close to an agreement, but the conversations represent a strong signal that Florida State and Clemson are open to remaining in the conference under more favorable financial terms. That was reading, again, verbatim from what David wrote. Basically, you guys might remember a couple of years ago, there was discussion in the Atlantic Coast Conference, primarily from a school like Florida State, but I think Clemson, North Carolina, a couple others might be interested in this too, to say, hey, instead of everybody making the same thing, why don't we have some type of performance-based pay? Like everybody will get the same base, but then with a portion of the remainder of the money, it is split unevenly, and more is earned by teams that advance farther in the postseason, and really in football and men's basketball. Now, you may have to extend that to, say, women's basketball and the College World Series or something for a league like the ACC, which is good in those other sports too. I would recommend they do that. Now, there's not a lot. There's going to be more money next year with the women's tournament. You still don't make a ton of money if you advance in college baseball. That's a lot more of a pride thing. There is some money there for you, but it's not
Because that TV contract got elevated.
Yeah,
so there's more than it's ever been.
Correct.
But not like program-changing money.
Yeah, I know. And really, I think I say, across the SEC and ACC, the fan bases are so big on college baseball, it feels much bigger when you are winning. But the financial rewards are not like, oh, wow. But anyway. But remember, that was sort of proposed and discussed and didn't get a lot of traction. And that's ultimately, when Florida State especially, Clemson to a lesser extent, started to really, kick and scream. And you remember that Florida State's athletics director went before their board of trustees, and this is untenable. I'm paraphrasing. We can't do this, and we're about to get passed by $20 and $30 million a year by the schools all around us, and we have to do something. And then, ultimately, of course, what they did was act like a petulant child, in my opinion. Clemson, to their credit, I do not believe has ever acted like a petulant child. Now, Clemson is certainly trying to also figure out they still want out. And there's sort of a double-edged sword belief right now, from what I've gathered in some discussions with folks around this story, that Clemson and FSU have come to realize no one's taking them. Now, there's multiple reasons for that, to be fair. It's not just we don't want you. Although there could be some of that. But it's also, look, you're locked in. So what we can't just, we being, the Southeastern Conference with the Big Ten, hey, as soon as you get out, come on by. You can't do that. You can't. If you get caught doing that, as we said, there was a term that we used a few months back called tortious interference. And if it could be proven in any way, shape, or form that even one email from someone in an official capacity that's associated with either of those leagues were to have contacted FSU or Clemson with any type of even vaguely potential invitation or something that could be construed
flirtation.
That way, yeah, you're going to be on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll get you. So you can't do it. But I do think Florida State has harmed its reputation. Again, Clemson, I do not think has done what Florida State has been doing. Not to that level.
Oh, like making, your state government complain on your behalf.
Yeah.
Is pretty lame.
Yeah. And potentially, upending some of your television partners' business proceedings. Like you can't do that and have people go, oh, well, sure, we want to keep working with you, even though you screwed it all up.
Or have another conference, see how you behave, and be like, yeah, we want you in ours, because you would really care for the betterment of the league and not just yourself.
There is at least some movement within the ACC's leadership to explore this again. I don't think it's just about Clemson and Florida State. I think a North Carolina would be interested in this. I think Duke will be interested in this. And we haven't talked a lot about Duke's role because Duke football doesn't move the meter. Mike Elko had a nice couple of years. Mike Elko has left Durham. And you'd like to think that Duke could continue to do what Wake Forest is doing, kind of punch above their weight from a football perspective. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. That's beside the point. Duke is still an elite amongst the elite of basketball. They will keep going to Final Fours. John Shire, taking over for Coach K, will still get top-level talent. North Carolina is going to be fine. Hubert's going to continue to get top-level talent. Miami Hurricanes will be interested in this because I think they're getting better at football. And Coach Larinaga has had some good basketball programs.
Big year for them in football. They've looked pretty good.
Virginia could be interested in this for what Tony Bennett does. I know they've kind of ebbed and flowed when it comes to the success of the men's basketball program relative to annual expectation.
Yeah, scoring points isn't their thing.
It's not, but keeping you from scoring is their thing. And sometimes, if you win 40-39, you win.
It counts.
You win. So I do think, and I'd be even curious, Elijah, what does Syracuse think about this from a basketball perspective, or on and on?
It would benefit them, right? Because I think they're getting a little better in that realm.
But I do think part of this too is simply that because, and I said this on Twitter, if Clemson and Florida State had more clarity about what this was going to look like in terms of trying to get out of the grant or have a landing spot, I think they continue to fight for a new home. I think they've seen they're losing that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said to you, I've had some discussions just briefly today about this. And one of the things I said, or I asked around was, have they been scared is too strong, back to the table, like scared back to the table. No, but forced back, urged back to the table, perhaps. Have they realized there's nowhere else to go? Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of that, and that there might be a path to work within. But I could see North Carolina, Miami, Duke, amongst others, but being interested in this because, again, especially in Chapel Hill and Durham, NC State made the Final Four last year too.
Yeah, that made them
in both men's and women's, right?
Yep, correct.
I can see, okay, performance based, after a certain level. Sure, let's explore. I think that's where we are.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the ACC is going to have to do is figure out a way to be able to contract more money because they are getting passed by because that TV deal, like grant rights, it aged so poorly, like milk. And here's the thing too, it behooves Clemson and Florida State to improve try to work within the conference that they're in right now to make it better because there's just no other good option for them. The SEC is full. The Big Ten is full. I think the Big Ten is about to learn a lesson the hard way that stretching themselves geographically is going to create 4 different money pits within their own conference because they're on the other side of the country and they're having to make certain teams travel more than the circumference of the earth. Right? Like that's not sustainable for a lot of your non-football and basketball, athletic programs. It's just wasting money at that point. And for the Big 12 too, they're also getting to the point where they're full. Like, yeah, Big 12 would probably like to add some schools, but would you really leave for the Big 12 and not see that as anything other than a lateral move? Really, the best option they have is to try to get something like this done and then reward the success that they've had in football and basketball. Clemson made the Elite Eight. In men's basketball. That program is starting to improve a little bit. The football team is what the football team has been. Even if they're not contending for national titles, they'll contend for ACC titles. Yep. And now in 2024 and beyond, that gets you into the college football playoff, right? Yep. That's going to make you more money. You're just going to be better off in the long run making what you have right now work for you. And if you can get this adjusted to where it all does become performance-based, that's going to benefit them in the long run more than it is trying to split a 20-piece pie with a third-tier TV contract in the Big 12.
The ESPN deal technically runs through 2036, but I'll remind you all again, it doesn't. It's only if ESPN and Disney pick up the option, which the current deal could technically expire in 2027. But Disney needs to let the conference know by February of next year, so just a few months away, if they're going to extend beyond. And Jim Phillips, the commissioner, no relation, says...
Yeah, 2 L's, not one.
That's right. Says that those talks are also progressing. So you're basically doing 2 types of negotiation at once in the ACC. And if they can get Disney to come up with a little bit more to put in that pot to spread around... But as we keep saying, Disney is not in the business of negotiating against itself.
Nope.
And so I don't think that's going to happen. But again, I would still say Florida State has shown other conferences that you might not be a very good partner to work with. So I will at least commend Clemson for not being, again, the petulant child that Florida State has been. Where it leads them both, though, we shall see. All right, speaking of petulance.
I love petulance.
Some people say that the Panther owner may be that. Mike Florio had something interesting to say, not just about David Tepper, but those that may potentially work for Mr. Tepper after this latest Bryce Young move. See what you guys think when the postgame show returns. Welcome back into the post-game show on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you, 20 minutes after 4 o'clock. More Gamecock sound coming up in just a little bit. Quick bit on the Panthers here. I said I had some advice for David Tepper. Number one, quit making football decisions.
Yeah, I think he should have recused himself from that a long time ago. And by that, I mean when he bought the team.
And two, be an owner that is more upfront with your fan base about what's going on instead of constantly either being silent or acting like you don't have as much sway. It's pretty well known that he made this team and Frank Wright, when he was coaching, pick Bryce Young. That's not just my opinion. I've spoken with people
upon good authority
around the franchise. I mean, we can all listen to what some of the NFL talking heads have to say about this, and that's the consensus, is that David Tepper forced the hand of Frank Wright. And, Marty Herney and everybody, and, of course, those guys are gone now, and Tepper's still around. And he's got a new GM in Dan Morgan, and he's got Coach Canellis, and it's also becoming a little more known that while he may not have outrightly said bench Bryce Young, he did, he had some influence on it. Dave Canellis at least was kind of nice in saying, no, hey, listen, it was my call. But Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk had a really interesting piece today. And I just, again, I know there's not a ton of Panther fans, and right now the apathy around that franchise is maybe at an all-time high. And I know a lot of people say, what can we do? How do we get rid of Tepper? You're not. And here's the thing that I say you're not. And I know that's, just let me indulge me here. Gonna borrow from Florio's piece today at pft.com. Nearly 8 years ago, he writes, 49ers CEO Jed York made a depressingly accurate comment about pro football. Quote, I own this football team. You don't dismiss owners. I'm sorry, but that's the fact, and that's the case. That's the fact. End quote. Florio continues, it's a sad fact for fans of the most dysfunctional teams. Currently, the NFL's most dysfunctional team is run by a drink-throwing, hat-removing, Veruca Salt multi-billionaire who thinks there's a button he can press that will instantly turn his team from a train wreck into a contender. So no, you don't dismiss David Tepper. There's nothing Panthers fans can do short of launching a sustained multi-year boycott, creating sufficient financial pressure to get him to sell the team. And I don't even think they can do that because he doesn't need the money. He wants the power. He wants the influence. He wants to be one of the 31.
He wants to play the game.
Yeah, and I say 31 because, again, the Green Bay Packers are not technically owned by any one entity. They are owned by fans, but they are controlled by the league and allowed to be as independent as possible, primarily because they are a cash cow wherever they go. And the other NFL owners have said, yeah, sure, why not? Y'all go ahead and try to be good. That said, Florio went on to say that here's a way to maybe have some influence placed upon David Tepper. He basically says, and I'll read here again, it's high time for college players who are finally making money to prepare to take a stand. It happens rarely. It should happen often. For quarterbacks, that first team shapes much of their career, and that first team can ruin or dramatically delay the quarterback's chance to realize his potential. And the incoming quarterbacks have more power than ever. Their money is the source of it. They have earned plenty. They have, or should have, banked a lot of it. They can make it clear to the Panthers, privately or if need be publicly, that they won't sign a contract with the Panthers, that whoever is drafted by Tepper's team will sit out for a year, live off his NIL money, and re-enter the draft the next time around. That's how it works. If a player is drafted and doesn't sign, he re-enters the next draft. If he does it again, he can pick whichever team he wants after the next draft. Now, you're not going to have a high-level college quarterback sit 2 full football seasons and then wait to become a free agent. John Elway successfully did this more than 40 years ago. Eli Manning did this roughly 20 years ago. They were both drafted by the dysfunctional team at the time. But within a relatively short amount of time, were moved on to franchises that were much better for them.
Minutes in the case of Eli.
In the case of Eli, during that same draft, yes. For John Elway, it took a little bit longer when he basically said to the Colts, hey, I've also been drafted by the New York bleeping Yankees, and I'm just going to go do that. And I'm good enough to at least have a real shot at big league baseball, which, by the way, John Elway was. He was an outstanding baseball player at Stanford. Might not have been as good a baseball player as he was a football player, but
Yeah, because that would mean he would be a Hall of Fame baseball player.
Nevertheless, he was, he had a real shot with the New York Yankees. I don't know. The money is so great that you may not look at it from a purely football perspective, and I wouldn't blame you if you are one of these quarterbacks and their families. Because if you are one of the first players taken, and let's face it, y'all, the Panthers are more than likely going to be the first pick, for the team to pick first again. Maybe not, but
it would take a miracle, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean,
because of how bad they've looked in the first 2 games.
There's some 0-2 teams out there, including my favorite team, but Baltimore's also 0-2, right?
Yeah.
So take it as you will. What Florio is saying makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if it's enough to pop David Tepper in the head and go, all right, am I really running the franchise this badly? Because the answer is yes, sir, you are.
I mean, really, instead of, completely boycotting getting or playing for the team if you get drafted by them, one thing I would be all in favor for is if you're a quarterback and the Panthers are picking first and they want to put you in an interview during the combine, I'm all for either completely blowing it off or tanking it.
All right.
Like go in there, start picking your nose when watching film.
Smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, just bring a pack of Marlboro Reds with you, let it sit out like the shirt pocket. And they ask you, what formation is this? And you'd be like, potato. Just really tank it. Completely tank it and make it to where you're not as draftable. Then when everybody else interviews you, obviously wear your Sunday best and do your best. Yeah. But, even just giving off the appearance that you would not want to play for them. And make it a concern in some of these interviews too, because look, in those pre-draft interviews, you have an opportunity to ask questions too. You have an opportunity to talk to them as well. These are two-sided discussions, and being like, look, I saw what's happening to Bryce Young. I don't know if I can trust you to not let that happen to me and stunt my development to the point of ruining my career.
Or Sam Darnold.
Or Sam Darnold, because it's so hilariously ironic that they had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold just 2 or 3 years ago, and those two have the highest QBRs in the NFL after the first 2 weeks of the season. Well, Sam Darnold, that for those we haven't got to talk about it, that throw he made from the end zone to Justin Jefferson on the 50-yard line was an absolute dart. That 97-yard touchdown pass from that all 22 angle is one of the prettier passes I have ever seen. Not saying Sam Darnold's a Hall of Famer, but you had 2 competent quarterbacks in there. You made them look like horrific quarterbacks. You got a number 1 overall pick, a former Heisman winner in Bryce Young, and you can't make him look good enough to move the ball up and down the field. A lot of that's Bryce Young, but also at the same time, that environment is ripe for players to turn into busts.
It is, and look, some of it is on Bryce, and there is a pretty good sample size now, I understand. There's also a pretty good sample size of not surrounding him with anybody. He's been in 2 different systems already. There's no stability there. This is another reason I talk about it. I'm not going to bang the drum right now, but I talk about a developmental league. Some guys are great college players. Again, Bryce was surrounded by so many great players and coaches at Bama, and now, in a relative sense, he's got almost none of that. But hey, dude, go be awesome. Tepper can fix a lot. I just don't know if he really thinks he should or wants to. More on the Gamecocks coming up. It's football season, y'all. Finding the best way to watch the big game when you're not there is really easy because you need to call my good friends at Integrated Media and see what I'm talking about. Just one call. They come to you. House calls. That's like old school type stuff. And then you get the latest from Samsung, from Sony, from Sonos. Amazing Dolby Atmos surround systems throughout the entire house or wherever you want them. Or you can go next level outdoors. The Samsung Terrace TV, the Sonos outdoor speakers, equipment that is built to be outside all year long. Trust me, it looks and sounds just like anything inside does. They really are amazing when it comes to outdoor systems. And this time of year, with the weather being cooperative, hey, get out there. One room, whole house, outdoors, Wi-Fi that works everywhere. If you can dream it up, you've seen it in a sports bar at a buddy's house or wherever else, Integrated Media can do it for you. 803-948-8327. Feel like you're there with Integrated Media.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start with all the ones in Richland County, and there's a plethora of them, starting with one on Blythewood Road at I-77 or near I-77. Got one on Hardscrabble Road at Lee Road. Another one on Plowden Road at South Beltline Boulevard. Two on US 176 at Broad River Road, but one's near Bush River and the other one's near I-20. In Lexington County, we have two accidents, one on Highway 1 at Augusta Road near Swartz Road, and another one on I-26 West over near Exit 115.
We were just talking some Panthers, what David Tepper could do to try to fix things, which, short of selling the ball club, which ain't happening, not a lot of hope.
Yeah, David Tepper's really good at fixing things in professional sports.
Yeah, I feel really badly for fans up there. And again, they've become quite literally the worst team in professional football since he bought the club.
You know how we talked about in the first hour about the spoils of losing for teams like Akron who are coming here on Saturday?
Yeah.
that you're going to walk out of here with $1.5 million.
Right.
Yeah, you don't get that in the NFL. So there is no benefit to being the league punching bag for any extended amount of time. That's what they become. Like, congratulations, you have leapfrogged over the Cleveland Browns and New York Jets and Detroit Lions. You know, the Lions have done a pretty good job of removing themselves from that category of being the league's punching bag.
I don't know. And again, I don't mean to sound naive here, but in terms of how we discuss it, I just don't know how he can be this bad at it. When you've had time to understand where the biggest errors have occurred and you're still making them. And then
Hubris.
you go, well, sure. And that's why I say I don't mean to sound naive because, yeah, I can come back to what it truly is. But then you go and hire a guy like Dave Canales, and it's not really about Dave. Look, if you want to hire him as an OC, okay.
Like, who did you outbid for Dave Canales?
Nobody.
No one was wanting Dave Canales to be their head coach.
No, and then you do it because you want him to teach, coach, tutor, mentor Bryce Young. And then you tell him 2 games in, well, you got to get rid of him. We got to start winning. I've even seen a lot of Panther fans like, why are we trying to win now? If this league is going to reward us with yet another high draft pick, I mean, it should really be,
At this point, it's punishing you with another high draft pick so you can completely ruin their career.
Yeah.
As well.
I mean, it's becoming comical at how badly this organization is being run. I've seen some suggest go ahead and not win, but don't take a quarterback at number 1. Instead, go get somebody who's really good somewhere else, and then get a quarterback. But nobody's going to want to come play for you out of free agency. Mm-mm. And Lord knows you've made enough dumb trades. You don't have all you can really trade is draft picks, and you need draft picks. If anything, get the number 1 draft pick and trade down a little bit. Like, well, we'll try to get something at like 5, and try to see if somebody will be as dumb as you were
to give you more.
Send
than
me
what
4 draft picks and your best player. I mean, it's like a bad game of Monopoly. Yeah, I'll give you a boardwalk for the 2 purples and 1 train.
Oh yeah, and the thimble. That's also on the board.
And your get out of jail free card. So I don't know where they really. I don't know who else they're going to be able to go find that's going to want to work. People are saying, like, go get Ozzie Newsome to come out of retirement. If I am Ozzie Newsome, I'll be like, hello? Hi, Ozzie. David Tepper, owner of the Panthers. Click.
Immediately.
Like, I'm not, Bill Polian, anybody. I don't.
They're just in the position. They're in
and
the
Polian
position
did it once.
now.
Polian did it once. He set him up once. He's not doing it again. And now he's retired anyway.
It's such a hard job. Why would anyone leave retirement? Sweet retirement to have to do something incredibly difficult and work for that guy.
Yeah, and you don't have good people, and they're all scared of you because that's from what I understand. That's what you instill is a culture of fear. Fear the boss. Don't respect the boss. Don't work with the boss. Fear the boss. That never. And clearly it's worked in Tepper's other businesses, whatever they may be, hedge funds and such. But usually guys like that go in and all they do is clean house. Mm-hmm. And then reap the benefits of resale. Yeah. So, and again, look, I'm not knocking it. He's made a lot of money. He's the second wealthiest owner in the NFL, behind only the Walton family that owns the Broncos. And we all know what business they own. So, I feel for you, Panther fans. I genuinely do. But I'm here to tell you this doesn't get better anytime soon.
Mm-mm. They're already in the position now where nobody wants to work for them. GM, you had to get somebody who played for the franchise, who you also weren't outbidding anybody for.
Right.
Head coach, the exact same thing.
Right.
You've already ruined a number 1 overall draft pick that you traded everything for. Like it's at the point now where really the only way to get back in any type of relevancy is to sell the team, because under his ownership, it has gone from a franchise that wasn't far removed from going to the Super Bowl to being, the punching bag of all professional football.
The literal worst team in football.
Like these first 2 games too, man.
Oh, they've been terrible.
Oh, they were not remotely competitive.
And the Raiders just beat the Ravens in Baltimore. The Raiders are pretty good.
Yeah.
And we know the Ravens are good.
And Gardner Minshew can play a little bit. The Raiders don't have a terrible looking offense or defense. Max Crosby had a really good game. Like the Raiders can beat Carolina by 30 as well. And I don't think anybody would be surprised.
If Andy Dalton is the answer for the Panthers this weekend and they do find a way to win, okay, cool. Is that sustainable? What if Andy goes down? I mean, he's almost 37 years old. If he gets hurt, I mean, you hope he doesn't. Have you given up completely on Bryce? It sounds like they kind of have.
Or he has.
And again, you brought in this coach to be the teacher and mentor for Bryce. Like, he's good with quarterbacks.
Which is what tells me this is not Canales' decision.
Yeah.
At all. Because the whole reason, that like you mentioned, the whole reason you bring him in is because of what he did with Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith in his last 2 stops and helping revive their careers. Even though, as an offensive coordinator, he's never had an offense in the top half of the NFL. Whatever. But you bring him in there to work with Bryce Young, that type of coach who is so invested in quarterbacks, especially in guys that have a lot of talent like Bryce Young does. He didn't just get untalented, right?
Right.
What he did in college was because he was a great quarterback. But you don't bring Canales in just to make that move after 2 games. And I guarantee you, when Canales was being interviewed, he was eagerly looking forward to working and trying to fix Bryce Young, getting the challenge of getting the most out of Bryce Young. Those type of coaches do not give up on a quarterback 2 games in. Temperamental, crybabies, give up on quarterbacks like that 2 games in because they just don't think, they don't see the forest through the trees. There are 17 games in an NFL season. Yes, these first 2 were atrocious. Yes, Bryce Young finally had a game which he's only pressured on less than 5 of his 29 dropbacks, and he still was bad. Mm-hmm. Yes, but he's played 1 full season, and you are only 2 out of 17. Given everything we know about David Tepper, this is exactly his MO.
Yeah.
Is getting really bent out of shape, getting really angry, and making a decision out of that emotion. That's why I cannot be convinced otherwise. This was anything but a call from David to Dave Canales' office saying, hey, you don't play Bryce Young this week. Yes, sir. Okay, we'll bench him right now.
Right, yeah.
Hangs up phone.
Right. Again, if this move works, more power to you. But I'm going to say again,
37-year-old Andy Dalton. Congratulations.
If this is the move that does it, then, okay, it's all on Bryce. But otherwise, I look around at that team, and I don't see how it could possibly be all about the quarterback.
Nope.
You don't have a great run game. You don't have any kind of bona fide number 1 since you traded DJ Moore at receiver. The line is a little bit better, I think. That's what they tell me, but I hadn't seen much evidence of it.
Nope. I mean, it only got a little bit better because it couldn't be much worse because that bar was resting firmly on the floor, brother.
Yeah. And again, should David Tepper come out and go, yes, Panther fans, I failed you in forcing Frank Reich to take this guy, and now I've made Dave Canales bench him.
The words "I have failed" have never left his mouth a day in his life, and they never will.
Wouldn't that be refreshing? Would that buy him a little more PR love?
Oh, another thing he's a great expert in, yes, PR and love.
That's true.
He's the football Grinch.
The biggest Woj bomb of all time dropped this morning. We'll tell you about that. A lot more Carolina football to discuss as well. It's the Wednesday postgame show. Welcome back into the post-game show. I kind of like this bump. Feels like a Woj bomb, kind of an announcement music setup.
Kind of, yeah.
You know?
Aggressive out the gate.
Yeah.
Enough to get your attention.
Before we tell you about that, though, real quick, want to remind you just a couple of craft beer cards left. It could be more than a couple. It actually says a few. So I don't know where that fine line is. A couple's technically two.
A couple, yeah, technically two. But in the South, I think we've used a couple as anywhere from like 2 to 5.
You get $30 per location at 12 craft beer locations all around town. That's a $360 value, but you can get one for just $79. You can get 2 of them. Still get a lot of, not free beer, but very, very, very discounted beer.
Yeah, I was going to say really discounted.
Yeah. Go to 1075thegame.com. Click on Sweet Deals. You'll find it. It's on one of those clicky, spinny Terry Ford web banner thingies.
I'd call it a nice little slideshow, maybe.
Yeah,
Until you see, the beer card.
Yeah, Ford calls it like the clicky, spinny thingy.
Which is very, very
technical. Yep.
Very, literal.
So today, just real quick here, this is great. This is great. Many of you, I know we're not a huge NBA station and even really market, much like the Panthers, the local NBA team up the road is not what you would call good.
That is the nicest way you could have possibly.
Thank you, Elijah. I'm a nice person. But many of you have heard about Woj bombs in the NBA. It's Adrian Wojnarowski, who is widely regarded as the best reporter of all things NBA, whether it's player personnel moves, coaching moves, you name it. Woj is on it. He's very well connected. He's in his mid-50s now, and after more than 30 years in the business, including a really nice run at ESPN, today he announced that he is hanging him up. And a lot of people, like I heard Dan Patrick talk about it, and Paulie was asking him, where do you think he's going? And Dan said, because Dan didn't know the news. He goes, what's he going to a gambling website? He's going to have insider information on a gambling site. Do
what Shams does and completely manipulate betting markets. Which is totally cool.
But that is not what Adrian Wojnarowski is going to do. This is cool, y'all. He is going. He went to St. Bonaventure University, and he is going to go back and become the general manager of the St. Bonaventure men's basketball program. He's staying in basketball.
Yes.
But he's getting out of the media. He's going to get into the new NIL space, scheduling player personnel, helping the head coach, helping the AD.
Love that.
Love it. And he basically said in so many words, I gotta find the time to do this. And you and I were talking about him this morning. He's got a 24/7 job. Adam Schefter, Jeff Passan, who does it for ESPN for baseball. You can be out with your family. You can be doing whatever. You're on vacation. Somebody calls you. Hey, here's some news. You got to get it out. That's what they pay you for. And you make a lot of money.
Yep.
But this is cool. This is, and in this new era, you and I were talking, that's A10 basketball. It's a great basketball league. He loves his school, wants to give back before it's too late. I'm here for you, dude. And he'll be missed. But that's refreshing.
I'm pumped
it's
for him.
It's refreshing.
I'm absolutely pumped for him. And this is why it's always Team Woj over Shams, because Shams joined the dark side and started manipulating betting markets for his company's personal gain. But whatever. But Woj doing this, I think, is really, really cool. And it's one of those things that, to give you an idea of how stressful having that job is, where Adam Schefter put it really well, you don't work the job, you live the job, right? That this is a significantly less stressful job, and he's still working in the NIL space.
Right.
And in college athletics. Right. And it's significantly less stressful than the job he previously, held. But I'm happy for him. I go Bonnies from here. This is an unofficial St. Bonaventure A10 loyalty fan club show. For at least this segment, because I'm really excited for to see what he's going to do. I think that's a really, really cool gig, and the A10 is one of my favorite conferences in all of basketball. You know why? Because the A10 will never get broken up because of football realignment.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's really cool. We get to keep it forever. Yes, they have invaded some other conferences, like Loyola Chicago is a weird fit, but the A10 is a really cool league with a lot of really good teams. It's very competitive, and that's a really fun challenge for someone like Adrian Wojnarowski, who now gets to really, I guess, maximize his basketball life a little bit more than just being on the phone all the time and talking to sources.
You live in a pretty area. It's a small town. It's basically in the middle of nowhere in western New York. It's not close to or all that far from a couple of big cities. Like it's near Buffalo, but it's a few hours drive. It's near Cleveland, but it's a few hours drive. It's near Pittsburgh, but it's a few hours drive. Near Rochester, but it's a few hours drive. Like it's just kind of nestled in the hills there again of western New York. Good for him. I got nowhere. I'm not coming anywhere close to comparing my career to his, but I told you, Elijah, after 17 seasons of Gamecock football on Saturday's Gamecock Radio Network, which I loved, I was like, man, I need to be a dad before I can't be a dad anymore.
Yeah,
I missed a lot of stuff, and he's kind of feeling the same way, so I get it. So, Woj, pulling for you, man.
Congratulations. It's a congratulations, not a sad goodbye.
That's right. That's right. And we'll hear from him because, man, I expect the Bonnies to be in the tourney now on a regular basis, right? Headlines of today and more from the coordinators coming up. Sometimes, guys, you feel a little off. You're like, man, where did I put my keys? What am I supposed to do today? What are we doing tomorrow? You're just not quite there. Or something just feels a little off physically. You're like, that's not quite right. That's not what I want to be anymore. Well, don't wait for it to go away. Don't think that you'll just, snap yourself back into it. Instead, do what so many guys around here have done, and that is go see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic. You can tough it out, but it's not going to work for you long term. So don't. Get to feeling better after you see Dan and his team. They're experts in healthcare for men. They're dedicated to making you feel like yourself again. You'll get that one-on-one consultation. Get to the root of a lot of things by getting to know you. What do you do every day? What happens around you every day? And then tailor a treatment that's just right for you. No such thing as a one-size-fits-all at the men's clinic. 803-875-MENS is the phone number, and learn more online at themensclinicsc.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways. Got a lot of them, mostly here in Richland County, it looks like, starting with one on Blythewood Road at Wilson Boulevard, another one on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at North Grampian Hills Road, another one on South Carolina 277 southbound, that's over near Hardin Street Extension. We also have one on US 378 near I-77. In Lexington County, we have an accident on Kitty Drive at St. David's Church and one on I-26 westbound over near exit 115.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the postgame show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Gamecock coordinators Dowell Loggins and Clayton White speaking today ahead of Carolina's matchup with Akron. That's a sold-out game now, Saturday night, 7:30. We'll have, of course, full-day coverage for you here. Don't know yet about Lenoris Sellers. Kind of a gray area. No official availability reports today for the Gamecocks because this one is not a conference game. But Dowell Loggins today did discuss how things changed when Robbie Ashford came into the ball game Saturday against LSU.
Yeah, you play that guy's strengths, and there's some similarities with him and Lenoris, but there's also there's a difference in between the two as well. So you play his strengths. When you're the backup quarterback, you don't get every rep that Lenoris gets during the week. So you also have to have intelligent, smart backups that can play with limited reps. It was there's a premium in the NFL. Like, one of the questions we'd ask when we start going through these guys that you start drafting the 4th through 7th round, like, are they smart? Can they learn without a lot of reps? So then you look at the reps you've had during the week with him. So when he gets in there, you're doing things that he's done that week because there are just the way it is. Like, he's not going to get every rep. He's not going to get every look as the backup that Lenoris gets. So there are certain plays that get marked off the call sheet right away.
There you go. In terms of how this looks this weekend, Dowell was asked where Lenoris is in terms of preparation.
I'm expecting for him to do a little bit more tomorrow than he did today. That's what those are my expectations. Same way what we're telling him, get better each day. Same thing with your health. Make sure you're doing everything in your power. Spending extra hours getting ready to play a game. So it's not only just for you, but it's also how you set the standard of when you are nicked up or banged up on how we perform and how we train and how we do things. So because everyone's watching how the starting quarterback gets ready. So his job right now, and it's been very clear, when you have free time, when you're not in class and you're not doing those things, get your butt in the training room and you set the standard for how you attack this rehab.
So there you go. Shane Beamer speaks again tomorrow night during Carolina Calls. Might have further guidance on Lenoris's availability. Look, this is not me giving advice. They wouldn't take it whether I did or not. But you feel like you can win this weekend anyway, right? There is a gap between Lenoris and Robbie. I don't think it's Grand Canyon-esque. And if it allows Robbie to get a little more confidence this week in practice and in his reps that Dowell was just mentioning, and can keep Lenoris off, because even if he's ready, if by Wednesday afternoon, when your OC is speaking, I expect him to do a little bit more tomorrow than he did today. Well, then he's not up to full speed, and he's not going to be in 48 more hours. And by then, you need to be ready to go, right? One day ahead of a game. My point being, as any of you know, all right, let's give Lenoris the day off. Yeah, you still need him to get his reps too. And I understand there is a fine line there because he is still very much growing into his role as the leader of this football team. And he is getting better every week. We have seen it. We have absolutely seen it. But you don't want to do anything, Elijah, that risks further greater injury. Mm-hmm. If this were a conference game or an even better, football team coming in, if this were, just as an example, East Carolina or Marshall or some such. Yeah, even what you had to do to kind of struggle, if you will, with ODU.
Yeah.
But it's not. And you like to think that your defense and Robbie Ashford and the run game can beat Akron.
That you can at least run the ball a ton of times to be able to make up for any type of passing deficiencies. And look, it wouldn't be a terrible thing to have Lenoris active, but like on the bench, break in case of emergency to get the offense rolling, just as a pocket passer, right? Even if there's incredibly limited mobility, if he's good enough to pass the ball, letting him play and direct and run the offense that way, you shouldn't have to be able to use the whole arsenal of what Lenoris Sellers has as a quarterback against Akron to be able to win it, which is why you would hopefully like to see, Robbie Ashford start the game, finish the game, and be able to at least engineer 4 or 5 scoring drives, because that your defense isn't going to give up a ton of points. I mean, you can win that game 35-10 and feel good about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, just getting out there with the win is the first thing. Being healthy. You have a bye week after this. If Lenoris doesn't play, yes, he will miss out on what I think are very valuable reps, and I think these are the reps, these in-game reps, are how he's been able to get better from week 1 to now. But at the same time, too, if you can afford him to basically 2 weeks of rest, then I think you will have succeeded in getting him as fresh as possible going into that Ole Miss game, because that Ole Miss game is going to be a massive, massive ordeal, and you need everybody to be fresh because Ole Miss will not have had their bye week yet,
right? And
this will be the toughest team they've played,
and they score points.
Yeah, that offense go burr,
and you'll need to score some points.
Yeah.
I heard most of what you said, but once you said the word Arsenal, I kind of just started to think about Arsenal.
Why so?
Because they beat Tottenham the other day.
I don't think that happened.
No, it did. I saw it.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Defense. Clayton White spoke. We've all had our takes on the officiating, and was that a penalty, especially the 100-yarder that was called back. And we saw a few things on really both plays after the pick sixes that were overturned. Here's Clayton White on what they talk about once there is an interception when it comes to blocking.
For the most part, you always, we do a pursuit drill, one of our pursuit drills that we do all the time during August, and get an INT. You always want to block the guy who they was throwing to. He's going to be the most upset, him and the quarterback. We always tell our guys to obviously go block the quarterback, because he's going to go for the interception. Blocks got to be in front and can't be low. And obviously the new rule, you can't peel back, obviously. So, we definitely work it. I mean, we go block our quarterbacks a lot when they go in and go make the plays, but it's unfortunate sometimes what happened on Saturday.
Again, you're not trying to rehash these things. There's still a very mixed bag of emotion when it comes to what was called, and I get it. My biggest thing was just don't put yourself in a position to have something bad go against you, whether it's a nitpicky call or not, and it was. We've all discussed that. It was. Sometimes it's called, sometimes it's not. But if you're not in a position to have it called against you, they won't call it against you, at least most of the time.
I am a believer in creating your own luck, and that some days are diamonds and some days are stones.
Yeah. On that note, too, we're going to get into some more things. Cut number 23 on today's list. Kyle Kennard obviously was involved in the penalties on both pick sixes that were overturned. Clayton on speaking with Kyle about that.
Which
23.
23. Oh, once a days, yes. I clicked the wrong button. That's
the main thing is I think we just have to learn from it and obviously respect Kyle and what he's done for this defense, this team. Obviously, obviously at the moment you want to be there for the guy, because some of us has been in his shoes, some of us have not. I knew for sure I wanted to make sure I reached out to him on Saturday or Sunday morning to make sure the sun, God willing, the sun will rise the next day and we keep it moving. But obviously he means a lot to us. He's still a leader. We all have to learn from it. Mistakes are made. That's why they put erasers on top of pencils, you know what I mean? Because people make mistakes. So mistakes are made. We just got to learn from them. We can't continue making the same mistake.
There you go. Again.
That's why they put erasers on top of pencils.
I like it.
And that's why my erasers were almost always, used to where there was nothing left by at least a month into the school year.
Kids still have pencils?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
They use those e-pencils now, e-pen, whatever you call them.
I've got a niece in the second grade. I can ask her mom, say, hey, she used pencils? Or they all use ink pens now.
More from both coordinators coming up in our 5:15 segment, so just a few minutes away. Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day, the latest nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame are out. 167 candidates. A screening committee will reduce that number down to 50 next month. Then the full Hall of Fame committee will cut the list down to 25, then 15 finalists. Once those 15 finalists are known, you got to get 80% of the votes to get in. Typically, it's about 3, 4, 5 that make their way into the hall. Eli Manning is amongst those that are being nominated this year for the first time.
Oh, that discourse is going to be a lot of fun.
Luke Kuechly, Terrell Suggs, Adam Vinatieri. There are also some senior candidates that are going to be in there, and no more than one. Let's see what it says here. At least one, and no more than 3 of those finalists will get in based on voting. Other first-time candidates include Ryan Khalil, Joe Staley, Marshawn Lynch, Darren Sproles, Demaryius Thomas, Vernon Davis. He was good. Antoine Bethea, Aqib Talib, Earl Thomas. I think former Gamecock. I'm trying to see here if I. No, maybe not.
I was gonna say, do you have access to all 167?
I thought I saw John Abraham. I thought I saw John Abraham's name on this list earlier, but it's not here right now. But I could. There's 167 of them. It's not on this one, but I thought I saw. Yeah, Cloninger put out earlier that John Abraham was on the list. There's not all those dudes in here.
My former work colleague Derek Mason on this list.
There you go.
Pull it for you.
So. Let's see here. Eli, 57,023 yards, 366 TDs. He made the Pro Bowl 4 times, but that's different than being an All-Pro.
Which is the real prize.
Yeah.
That's the real Hall of Fame bona fides.
And it's kind of hard to believe that he was never an All-Pro.
Not to me.
Not even once.
Do you think ever in Eli Manning's career, because there's 2 All-Pro quarterbacks named every year?
I think that's right.
You think he's ever been a top 2 quarterback?
Well, no, probably not.
No. I don't think so either.
3, 4, 5, perhaps. I mean, he's not. Look, it's funny. Like, Peyton is such the preparer and student of the game. And it's not that Eli doesn't take it seriously. I think he did. But Eli's just like, just give me the ball.
He was never that.
Yeah.
He was just never that.
Yeah, just give me the ball. I'll go throw it.
Like, that's also what sets Peyton Manning apart, was that he also not just won or multiple many All-Pros. He was like a 4-time MVP.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, he was good.
He was really damn good.
Yeah, he was good.
He's also fantastic on TV. The Manning cast rules. Even though I can't watch a full game of it, I love watching the clips of the best of, with Peyton on the whiteboard with Bill Belichick watching it, and Belichick's giving the defensive side of the breakdown, and Peyton's doing the offensive side of the breakdown of certain things that happen in a game. It's really cool. That is A+ television.
I like it. I do like it. I don't like it when they have like people that don't want to be there and they're there to like promote a film or a book or a tour or something
or whatever. Yeah.
Like who was it? Was it Wahlberg was on there last year and he was just like as interested as that as like being in the dentist chair.
Yeah, sounds about right. Which is why I can't watch a full game of it. Also, when I watch these football games, like I do enjoy listening to the traditional broadcast. Yeah. I do enjoy like watching the game. I get almost too distracted. I think it's the ADD in me that I can't focus on 2 of those things at once. I cannot focus on their commentary and the football game at once. I have to focus on one thing.
Finally, my Atlanta Braves last night blew a lead in Cincinnati and fell 6-5. The Braves were up 4-0 at one point, but they didn't hold on to the win.
The mighty, mighty Cincinnati Reds.
And now the Braves are 2 games back of the New York Metropolitans for the final wild card spot in the National League. I think I've asked this in some form. The Braves are very good typically. I'm lucky. All of us around here that are Braves fans are lucky because the Braves take it seriously and they're very good at what they do. But my expectation is always for the Braves to be in the playoffs, certainly. I really expect the Braves to win the East every year, and I think that's a fair expectation for what they've built.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the injuries, is it okay for me to reset expectations and be okay with not going to the playoffs and being like, oh, hey, they made the playoffs anyway, yay? Or do we be like just, be all disappointed that they didn't make the playoffs because even with injuries, you're the Braves?
My vote is that you end up being excited that they were this good with all these injuries. That would be me. That's how I would handle this, using the context of what the season was. Now, if you were healthy and missed the playoffs in this manner, you should be rightfully very furious that they missed the playoffs.
Oh yeah, well then,
but
then
how many teams in baseball are losing that many of their important players in their lineup and making the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean,
in a national league that has a lot of really good teams.
Yeah, your number 2 starter, your reigning MVP, your third baseman, and your
whole infield,
the heart of your team.
Yeah.
That's our integrated media headlines of the day. More from the Gamecock coordinators coming up. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Do want to remind you, Elijah and I tomorrow, along with the incomparable Jen Jensen, will be at CHW Cabinetry. That's on Two Notch Road in Lexington tomorrow. It's easy to remember the address, too, 1819.
What a year. Remember it like it was yesterday.
So come see us, and we will do our level-headed best to not have Jen have to holler at us the way she hollers at Gunner every day.
She would never. Jen and I are tight.
Yeah, I'm going to see Gunner tomorrow.
Tight.
We do our TV show tomorrow, do Bill and I, and I'll find out what he did wrong on tomorrow's show, excuse me, and then apply those things towards working with Jen.
That's right. This is a power mashup here.
Yep.
But no, Jen and I are tight. She won't roast me.
Cool. Tomorrow, 3 to 6.
Even though I deserve it.
Come see us, all you folk out in Lexington, as many of you call it, God's country out that way. 1819 Two Notch Road, CHW Cabinetry. And real quick, want to remind you about the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. It's back for another season. Now the pot up to $400. It's $100 a game is what's added. That's how that works. $100 a game. And now there's game 4. No special teams TDs yet.
We were dangerously close on Saturday.
Getting there.
We were dangerously close. Mo Brown wanted to win somebody some money. He tried so hard. He tried hard enough.
What a cool week. We hadn't talked about that enough, but what a cool,
that was awesome. And it was enough to make Brian Kelly mad, which makes it even better.
It is. Love it. But if Carolina does score a special teams touchdown this week, somebody wins $400. If they don't, then we'll add another $100 into it when Ole Miss comes to town. But right now, $400. But you have to register to win, and you can do so at 1075thegame.com. Thanks to Lawyer Lisa and the special teams contest. Back into some sound from Dowell Loggins. Rocket Sanders coming into his own last weekend with a couple of big explosives for the Gamecocks and had a heck of a day. Here is Dowell Loggins on what he is seeing from the running backs thus far.
Really fired up about the way the offensive line's playing in the run game. We still need to improve in our pass protection thing, but we went out in the portal and we got two new guys that play the right way in their style of play, but they practice that way. They practice that way on Tuesday, they practice that way on Wednesday, and they practice that way on Thursday. That's why they show up, and their style of play shows up with their attitude and their effort, the way they play. We also went out and when you come from the NFL, we're part of a staff with, I think there's 8 in the world that have a 2,000-yard rusher. So we were part of one of those guys with CJ2K in Tennessee, and we've coached guys like Jordan Howard that have led the NFC in rushing and done those things. So where I made a mistake was I go to college football, and in the NFL, there's not a premium on running backs. Like I'm in the Shanahan system for years, and it's like, hey, there's these guys. There's Jordan Howard in the 5th round. There's, we drafted CJ in the 1st in Tennessee, but like Lindell was the 2nd round pick, and we had Matt Forte as a good player, and then we've had some good ones, but never just didn't put a premium on that spot. Well, then you come to college football and you get in Arkansas, and you're like, we got 3 of them in Arkansas that could play. We got this guy named Rocket Sanders that happens to be pretty good. But then you come here and you understand now in college football, the running back position makes offensive linemen look better, make wide receivers look better. There's a premium on that position that I didn't realize coming back into college football, and I should have, because I played with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones at Arkansas, so I should have known how good those guys were. And then you get Rocket Sanders, and you figure out, you go back to ODU and his ability to make the first guy miss, and you go to Kentucky and you see the long run he bounced, and you 3rd and 1 against LSU, and you see a speed to outrun everybody and just the vision, and all of a sudden you tie that in with some quarterbacks that are pretty athletic and can run the ball on top of an offensive line who's run blocking at a high rate. But so I think there's a lot of people that deserve credit, and it's those guys for the offensive line, the tight ends, running backs, and quarterbacks that have made this thing go. And we've got off to a much better start than we were last year, and we need to continue to grow.
I'll be curious to see. I mean, look, Rocket's going to get his on Saturday, but how many? And again, I hate doing this, because it's presumptuous that you're going to be able to clear the bench. Yeah, I do look at a game where you're a 28-point favorite and say you should be able to get some more of that done. Of course, Carolina was a 21-point favorite against ODU, but that's beside the point now. Or maybe it's not beside the point, but do you get more of these guys involved? I mean, they do like Attaway a lot, but he just hasn't really had an opportunity yet because the quarterbacks, as Dowell said, the quarterbacks do run, and there's only one ball.
Yeah.
But you're going to need to get those guys going
at some point
soon.
Yeah, I mean, especially, heaven forbid anything happen to Rocket Sanders.
Right.
I mean, you got to have some of those guys in a pretty good rhythm. And I think this would be a really good opportunity for them to be able to display that a little bit. I don't think if you give Oscar Attaway 5 to 10 carries on Saturday that it's going to be detrimental to the offense, or at least I sure hope not, because that wasn't the plan coming into the year, right? I mean, Oscar Attaway was the perfect complementary back when he was at North Texas and still put up really efficient running numbers. The hope was to be able to pair him next to a solid starter and be able to not have much of a drop off whenever that starter had to, take a breather. That's why you bring Oscar here. I would love to see Oscar. Maybe you can get some red zone carries, right? Be able to put him in some situations, a 3rd and short, like a pressure situation where you are going to rely on him to pick up a first down, move the chains, whatever, get into field goal range, whatever it is, to be able to get him those confidence and enough reps to be able to make yourself feel good about having to use him later in the year.
One more here from Dowell. This is pretty cool. This is a little bit longer cut, but gets into the philosophy. Those of you wondering about play calling and how they kind of come up with this, this is Dowell on what it's like to build the offense every week.
Oh, I mean, Kentucky. The first 2 drives in Kentucky, we kind of stalled, then we go down and score the second one, I think. It's really there's different things you look at, and you're looking at how you're attacking the defense, like what you're planning for the quarterback. How do you settle some guys down? And there's so much that goes into it. It's like, hey, do you want to get Lenoir's hit early so he gets those jitters out? Does he need to get a completion? Does Josh Simon need to touch the ball early in the process? How many carries does Rocket need in the first quarter? If it's a big movement team or blitz team, or like, hey, what runs or do you want to start efficiently? Our goal was to have more efficient runs. Like we'd had some big runs in the Kentucky game and did some really good things, but it was like we need to be more efficient. So that's going to help our third down as you stay out of those 3rd and 7s and 9s, and you all of a sudden get 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 6. You're playing more efficiently. So you're looking at all of it, and it's not just one thing. It's not just, hey, I want to run this pass. Like, yeah, sure. It's like, hey, how does he feel about this? How many times did he see it? It's also talking to Lenoir. It's like, hey, what are you comfortable with? What do you want to start with? And that for some of these young kids, they don't know what they don't know. But if they believe it's a good play, it is a good play. If they have confidence in it, it is. So you're talking to everyone. You're talking to the coaching staff as well. Like, hey, what do you guys feel starting this thing? And everyone's got ideas and thoughts. It's not just me sitting in my house by myself and, hey, here's our openers. Here's our first 15. Here we go. We come in and we meet on it and we talk about it. And the offensive line coaches and with Coach Teasley and those guys and Sean Elliott and Black, they rank their top runs and they give us their top runs. And then myself and Shula and Furry and the pass game Ryan Yurchek, then we go on there and we give our passes and we mix them and we kind of come up with a plan that way. So there's a lot that goes into it, not just, hey, these are the best plays. And sometimes it's how it looked in practice. Sometimes as a coach, there's some intuition of like, hey, we didn't execute this play right, or we didn't get a scout team to give the perfect look, but we know how they're going to play. And sometimes it's a sell job to the players of saying, hey, and it's going back sometimes looking at how do they open the game? What is their percentage of blitz or coverage? And then the openers really start to say, okay, are they playing the way they thought they were going to play? LSU, they rolled it. The first series was all cover one. Second, it was blitz zone. Then also, it was like a Rolodex of defense stuff that he hadn't shown since Missouri in the first 2 games. So there's a lot of credit. We didn't do what we needed to do to win the football game, but there was a lot of positive on that tape and guys adjusting and taking that the series right before Lenoir hit the long run. They were doing some different stuff, and we caught them in a look where we knew it was going to be a good play before the ball was snapped, the way they lined up. We didn't know it was going to be a 75-yard touchdown, but we felt really good about making that adjustment and adding that play in right there. And there's just things that came up in the game that, our players handled some adjustments really well.
It's fun to hear that kind of stuff. And a lot of it you figure, yes, it's a by committee approach, certainly, but the play calling was this or that, and sometimes you realize, listen, what are they showing me? What have we done well?
I love just going in through behind the curtain and seeing the thought process of putting a script together. I think it's awesome.
And as always, you got to execute the play.
Most important.
They're not going to call it, most of the time anyway, if they don't think you can run it. Drive around the SEC. Got some interesting stats on the OU Tennessee game coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways so far this afternoon. We'll start with a big one over on I-77 northbound. That's over at Percival Road near exit 15. That accident has the right lane completely blocked, so we have a major traffic jam there on 77. We also have some more minor accidents on Blythewood Road at Wilson Boulevard, one on Highway 1 and Augusta Road at North Grampian Hills Road, one on Kitty Drive at St. David's Church, one on Mallet Hill Road near Polo Road, one on Rame Road at Legion Drive, South Carolina 277 southbound near the Hardin Street extension, US 378 near I-77, and lastly on Wayne Street at Whaley Street.
And it is Drive Around the SEC time here on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Much of the focus, not just for around the SEC, but all of college football this weekend on Norman, Oklahoma, as the Sooners get ready for their first ever game in the Southeastern Conference. And they take on, I don't want to say a suddenly revitalized Tennessee team, but I think a suddenly surprising championship contending Tennessee team. Tennessee is, look, they should have won all the games they played, but they've won it by like 1,000-2.
Yeah, I don't care if you're playing against air. Beating teams the way they have beaten them is very impressive. They have not given up a touchdown on defense.
No, they have not. And then they really, they statistically have one of the best defenses in the country. They certainly have. I think right now they have the number 2 defense statistically, and the number 6 offense statistically. So I looked at a couple of things here because we talked about it yesterday. Oklahoma is a 7-point home underdog. I don't have to tell anybody listening that's a college football fan that Oklahoma is obviously amongst the most elite programs in the history of the sport. Very rarely are they an underdog at all, no matter where they're playing, but certainly at home. And certainly not by a touchdown. The last time, did you look at this yet? By the way,
that they were
a home dog like this.
Oh,
this?
No, I have not.
Okay, you want to take a guess? Just give me a year.
Okay, the last time they were a home underdog.
I'm not
like
asking you
this,
for a specific date, but
I'm
just
going to say 1997.
Very good. 1998.
No.
November 21st.
Oh, so close.
1998. One more fun bit. Would you like to guess who they were touchdown home dogs to?
In 1998, I'm going to say that would have been Nebraska.
Texas Tech.
Ew.
Texas Tech.
That you could have given me every single Big 12 team to guess, and I would have got like 6 teams deep before I got to Texas Tech.
For what it is worth, Oklahoma won the football game. Final score 20-17. That was the John Blake. I think that was one of John Blake's last games. Might have been his last game actually. They were 4-6 going in, so they finished 5-6. Texas Tech coming in was 7-3, and the Red Raiders were 7-point favorites that day. So that's the last time Oklahoma has been a touchdown dog at home. Now, the flip side of this is that, okay, Tennessee, you're all big and bad right now. That's cool. But you are going to Oklahoma. And despite what we just told you, it is very hard to win in Norman. Now, I think you do know this one.
Yes.
So I'll tell the rest of you. The last time Tennessee won a conference road game against a top 15 team was 2006 when they went to Georgia And they actually won running away with it, 51-33. The Bulldogs were number 10 that week.
Georgia got up big early in that game, too, and then just completely unraveled in that second half.
And as I did learn here, thanks to The Athletic, there was a young true freshman that played the final series of that game for Georgia. His name was Matthew Stafford, a kid out of Dallas.
Huh. Wow, that was a long time ago, so surely he's not playing football anymore, right?
I don't think so. I'm not even sure if he made it.
No,
unless he was the number one pick in the draft and has won the Super Bowl. He might have.
That could be.
Look that up.
I thought that was just Clayton Kershaw's teammate. I didn't know he actually had a name.
Isn't that crazy?
Nuts.
If y'all don't know that, by the way, Clayton Kershaw was Matthew Stafford's center at the same high school in Dallas.
I don't know what's funnier, the fact they played football together in high school or that Clayton Kershaw played center.
Center, yeah. Maybe he wasn't all the way up to, what is he, 6'8", 6'7"?
Kershaw's that tall?
I don't know how tall. He's pretty tall, right?
He's probably, I was thinking like 6'5".
I don't know. He's big.
But yeah, he's not
I was thinking
small.
he was super tall. I don't know. He's tall. Anyway, there you go. So I don't know what gives this weekend. If you were asking me, and this will be part of the Wild Card Showdown on Friday, but what's more likely?
He's 6'4".
Okay. Well, that's not okay. I was thinking he was like 6'7". I don't know why. Anyway, okay. Well, 6'4", not that tall.
It's not.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's that tall.
Okay, if there's like Tennessee wins and covers, Tennessee wins, doesn't cover. Oklahoma wins, doesn't cover. Well, yeah, but Oklahoma wins or Oklahoma loses, so Tennessee win and cover probably is the most likely outcome.
From a football standpoint, yeah. Like from a personnel standpoint, I think that's absolutely the best case scenario. Oklahoma's defense, I think, has underwhelmed compared to what we expected it to be. The offense has certainly underwhelmed. Jackson Arnold has shown some flashes, but there's also been some like WTF throws, man. There's been a whole lot of that. I remember watching the Houston game from week 2 and being just flabbergasted at how disorganized the offense looked, how sloppy that operation looked. Granted, that was 2 weeks ago now, and they were able to put up 37 against Tulane, and that's what I think is a good Tulane team, a Tulane team that's better than most prognosticators thought coming into the season. But man, like Tennessee's offense has just been humming. I mean, Dylan Sampson has 9 rushing touchdowns this year already. 9. And here's the thing. If Tennessee gets up in the fourth quarter, Josh Heupel's going to keep his foot on the gas. For those who know the history of Josh Heupel in Oklahoma, how he won a national championship as a quarterback in 2000, how he got ousted as the offensive coordinator and was basically the scapegoat for the program's failures in 2014, and how ugly a divorce that was, and how bad you already know he wants to stick it to his old defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, because I believe if my memory serves me correctly, Brent Venables was the co-DC on that 2000 championship team at Oklahoma. He would like to stick it to him. Yeah, I know he would absolutely like to go in there and run it up. That's my theory as to why he kicked onside against Kent State up 30. He's practicing. He's practicing the onside kick because you know what he's going to want to do? Go up 30 and onside kick in Norman and be able to throw some double birds to everybody in that crowd, specifically the athletic department, specifically Bob Stoops.
Let's say that this game gets ugly in Tennessee's favor. Does that make the brass currently at Oklahoma and that fan base go, okay, we screwed up real bad, Josh? We're gonna buy Brent out. Josh, we're gonna make you the highest paid coach in football. Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation happens.
It would be worth trying to happen.
Yeah, where it goes, don't know.
Yeah, because unfortunately they're not bidding against Northern Iowa, right?
Right.
They're bidding against a school that has cracked into the $200 million a year revenue club that only 9 schools in the country.
Yeah, Tennessee's raising a lot of money under Danny White. Now, I don't know if Tennessee can go toe-to-toe if they just keep going dollar for dollar. Eventually, Oklahoma might go, all right, fine. Here's an oil well or something.
Here's some stake in the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Part
ownership.
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money at UT. There is.
Jimmy Haslam's going to have to step in and help out a little bit, too.
But I don't know. It'll just be interesting. That'll be an interesting conversation if that happens. But I think of all the things that could potentially unfold, and I'm not necessarily predicting this yet, but I think a Tennessee win and cover seems the most likely because I don't think Oklahoma can score.
Yeah, that's the thing. Tennessee's defense is nasty. Like from a football only standpoint, this is right for Tennessee to go in there and beat them over the head to death with hammers for 4 quarters. But like, this would be the most Tennessee thing in the world to be favored in a road SEC game against a school like Oklahoma and just completely blow it up 21-0 or something like that.
Well,
completely
and
gag
listen,
it away. That would be the most on-brand thing that football program can.
And they haven't seen a defense like this. And Venables will come after them and try to make life very uncomfortable, and it will be hostile. And some of these Tennessee kids haven't yet played in something this hostile.
It's their first SEC game ever.
Yeah.
It's going to be obnoxiously loud in that stadium.
Yeah. So it could be, I'm looking forward to this one. That's the Drive Around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy. Stop by the showroom, see why Herndon makes you smile.
I feel good about the track we're on. Trust me, I know where we are, but I feel good about the track we're on, and I feel good about the players we have. Would love to have some of those guys from Ohio State too. So if they want to transfer on down, we've got a Tudor's Biscuit NIL, all you can eat. So if any of those guys that run really, really fast at Ohio State like Tudor's Biscuits, I promise you, all you can eat all day if you transfer here. So, but yeah.
That is Marshall's head coach, Charles Huff. The Thundering Herd will be in Columbus this weekend to take on the Buckeyes.
Where do I sign up? Goodness gracious, that sounds good.
I've not had Tudor's biscuits.
I haven't either, but I love biscuits.
If it's something along the lines of like a Bojangles or whatever, then I'm in.
I mean, it really doesn't even matter the brand, man.
Or if it's you know what? If it's a local place in Huntington,
I'd eat McDonald's biscuits if I had unlimited biscuits. I mean, that's all you can eat, buddy. I can eat a lot.
Yeah. I hope at least one third team Ohio Stater says, you know what, Coach? In 2025, I'm coming down to play in West Virginia.
Go ahead and find me an apartment in Huntington.
In the meantime, Marshall goes into Columbus as a 40-point underdog.
I believe in them to cover. You know who their quarterback is, right? Or one of their quarterbacks. They've had a little bit of a quarterback conundrum over the last year and a half.
At Marshall, you mean?
Yes.
Tell me.
It'd be Cole Pennington.
Oh, really?
Son
Chad's
of Chad
boy?
Pennington.
Yeah.
Yep. Marshall Thundering Herd legacy.
I'm trying to remember. Y'all help me out, Gamecocks.
Makes me feel
Marshall
old.
came here and won back in the day. Was Pennington their quarterback?
What year? Do you remember what year it would have been?
Trying to remember.
If it was anywhere from 98 to 2001,
late 90s, right?
then it would have been Chad Pennington, yeah.
Some of y'all are probably screaming, going, yes, Jay, it was. I think that was when Carolina was not so good.
Chad Pennington was very good. And then they followed Chad Pennington up with Byron Leftwich. Marshall had an embarrassment of offensive riches in the late 90s and early 2000s.
And that Randy Moss guy was good.
Yeah, I heard of him.
Yeah, he was good. Meanwhile, the Utes are going to be at the Pokes this weekend. That sounds kind of fun, right? Utah, a 2-point favorite at Oklahoma State. Both teams, as long as Cam Rising can go, he had some stitches on his throwing hand the other day after an injury. Didn't play against Utah State. But this is like an AARP game, right?
In a way. So, Reese's has the Senior Bowl at the end of the year for graduating seniors who are going to try to play in the NFL, and it's basically a showcase. So South Carolina's own Spencer Rattler was the Senior Bowl MVP. We need a better name for this, and I'm really trying to find, or at least workshop, some material to nickname this game because starting quarterback Cam Rising, assuming health is no longer an issue with him, that he's good to go, is in his 7th year of playing college football. He is 25 years old. Oklahoma State quarterback Alan Bowman is in his 7th year of college football.
Both have had major injuries twice, if you're wondering.
Yes. He is 24 years old. Cam Rising specifically was born before Y2K. He was born in 1999. Both these guys have played for multiple schools. The combined age of these men, not kids,
right,
the combined age of these men, these grown men, 49 years old. There's a game happening the next day in the National Football League, Jay Phillips, between the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts. Those two quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams, are a combined age of 44. If this isn't the most 2024 college football thing you have ever heard in your life, then you will never see 2024 college football quite like these contrasting quarterback battles.
I wonder. I'm assuming at some point, because I haven't seen anything leading up to this, that this is like the first time that's happened. And the folks at Elias Sports can go in and do this, and you think I don't know, a couple of rookies, and maybe there's some 6th-year guys, but I just wonder how often this has been a thing, and maybe this. Is it the first time that you've had a game? Well,
Chris Wanke and Brandon Whedon didn't play at the same time, so they couldn't have played each other.
Right.
But those are two dudes that were pushing 30.
Yeah.
Quarterback.
That's what I was kind of thinking when Wanke was at FSU, because he played like a few years. I mean, Corey Jenkins here in Columbia for the Gamecocks. Corey, I think, ended up finishing school at around age 25 because he played some minor league ball. But didn't Winky like win the Heisman at like 28?
Yep. He did. He was the Heisman Trophy winner.
So, yeah, I mean, it's that's crazy. But both in their 7th year. Again, now because of injury. Now everybody got the COVID year, but you still had to get they both had to have their 7th years granted to them because of prior injury. And, I suppose if Rising had not, I mean, he like really messed up his knee last year.
He tore his knee up in the Rose Bowl against Penn State.
Missed the whole, okay.
And then missed the whole
season, right.
Which is ironic because before week 1 against Florida, it was like, oh, Cam Rising's questionable for that game. He was questionable for the whole season.
Yeah. That'll be fun. Good stuff today. Thanks to Jordan Kay for joining us. Appreciate it. As always, see you tomorrow in Lexington at CHW Cabinetry. Let me tell you about Janet and Bob Keene and their staff at The Joint Chiropractic. 4 locations all across town. Their goal, it's simple. Improve the overall health of their patients with affordable, convenient chiropractic care and help you maintain and prevent reoccurring problems. One of the things that I learned from Bob that I think is a fantastic way to approach it, you don't have to feel bad to feel better. If you're bothered by back, neck, shoulder, or joint pain, get back in the game. No appointment is ever necessary. No worries about insurance. If you're wondering about what they can do for you, they have a very easy way to find out. An initial visit with a consultation, an exam, and an adjustment is just $29. And again, you don't need an appointment. And there are joint locations not just around town, but all across the country. So if you're traveling for games, for work, for vacation, need an adjustment, don't worry about it. You'll find a joint somewhere near you. Here in Columbia, Harbison, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch off Killian, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington, and learn more at thejoint.com.